girl with a preppy vibe. Came to the spot with a friend of mine. She caught my eye. From the beginning, I was hooked. I can't tell a lie. Fresh, dressed, and fly. I respect her mind. Some dudes trying to impress, but looking goofy at the same time. He bugging, she looking. I'm going for mine. Confidently, I approach with that eye-to-eye contact. She smiling while adjusting her hair, so I smile back. Pretty girl, what's your name? She said, is that true? Cause if it is, your name perfect for you. My name handsome. She said your name fits you too. See, we was clicking, and after that, time just flew. Then that time came to talk to her pops. He gave his blessing, and then that mind frame I had was honoring and protecting. I knew she was the one when we met. I found my future girl, and no other woman compares to my girl.
Hey y'all, welcome to the check-in. Happy Monday. I am 6 minutes behind schedule. Y'all, it takes forever sometimes for these videos to upload and process, but guess what? We are up and running, okay? Y'all, let me tell you before I get going, it snowed here today in Maryland. Yes, I got a little snow around lunchtime and then early afternoon, but guess what? It wasn't a whole lot, okay? So let me tell you guys, we have a lot to talk about today. We're going to talk about the Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton depositions. As a matter of fact, I was surprised that they actually had the full depositions already uploaded to the internet. Uh-oh. They had the whole depositions uploaded to the internet as of a couple of hours ago. So of course, couldn't watch it all because guess what? These depositions are like maybe 4 hours, 4 to 6 hours each. So we're going to kick things off by looking at the depositions, and then we're going to move over into discussions about the Operation Epic Fury, okay? So let's get it going.
Can the court reporter please swear in the witness?
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this deposition will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Can the court reporter please swear in the witness?
Breaking news, we're now getting the deposition videos of former President Bill Clinton and his wife, former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. The couple each faced tough questions from the House Oversight Committee investigating Jeffrey Epstein last week. Take a listen to one moment from Bill Clinton's deposition where he describes his interactions with Epstein.
Through my brief acquaintance with Jeffrey Epstein, though it ended years before his crimes came to light, and though I never witnessed during our limited interactions any indication of what was going on, I'm here to offer what little I know so I can do my part to prevent something like this from happening again. I have to just say one personal thing. Since Hillary came in yesterday, she had nothing to do with Jeffrey Epstein. Nothing.
I want to bring in CBS News legal reporter Katrina Kaufman live for us. Katrina, that video just came down moments ago. We're still going through it, but what stands out to you so far?
So yes, we are pouring through these deposition videos now. A few moments that have stood out so far are there's one.
So let me say this, y'all. For those who are just joining, welcome to the check-in. Right now, we're going to look at the depositions of Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton. But yes, I really like the fact that Bill Clinton said, look, having my wife come here to do this just makes no sense, right? So I like that he put that on record as part of his opening statement. But let's go ahead and get back to what they've seen. Because like I said, they just released the full deposition videos a couple hours ago. And it's like, I think 4 hours for one and 6 for the other. So not enough time to take a look at it as of right now, but we will going forward. So let's look at this real fast.
One where former President Bill Clinton is asked about the note that he wrote Jeffrey Epstein in that birthday book that came out. There was also something that appeared to be from President Trump. And former President Clinton said that he did, in fact, write that letter, and he thinks that he was asked to do it by a member of his staff, he said. So he did confirm that. He was also asked a lot of pointed questions, like, Did he ever have sexual activity with someone introduced to him by Ghislaine Maxwell? He said no. He also said that he wasn't aware of any young girls who were under 18 on the plane when he was with Jeffrey Epstein. He said that he had a much more extensive and long relationship with Ghislaine Maxwell too, and said that it was hard for them when they learned about her crimes and her involvement with Jeffrey Epstein and his crimes. He also said that he never saw Jeffrey Epstein do anything suspicious. And both Bill and Hillary were asked about a series of names, whether they recognized them, people who have come up in the Epstein files, also very pointedly about Huma Abedin, a former top aide of Hillary Clinton's. So these are very long. We're going through all of them, but those are a few moments so far that have stood out.
And I'm curious because it's important to note that Bill and Hillary Clinton were each deposed on different days. What are the key moments that you're looking for from Hillary's deposition?
I mean, with Hillary, she said afterwards that she was asked more times than she could count if she knew Jeffrey Epstein. As you played in that clip, something that Bill Clinton said is that this was personal, that he understood that he had to answer questions, but he did not understand why they had to bring in Hillary, who really had no ties to Jeffrey Epstein. We know that the conversation with her, she said, really went in some very different directions. She was asked about UFOs. She was asked about a conspiracy theory called Pizzagate. And I think we can take a listen to what she had to say about that.
Pizzagate was totally made up. It was an outrageous allegation that ended up hurting a number of people, that caused a deranged young man to show up with his assault rifle and shoot up a local pizzeria. I can't believe you're even referencing it. You should be.
There are connections to the language.
Well, the QAnon people believe there are. So
I don't know what QAnon people believe.
Have at it.
But you've accused certain parties, and I think even right now today, of promoting slow walking or information in ways that fuels conspiracies. In your view, did any Epstein-Maxwell related investigations or file handling pre or post 2019 contribute to or intersect with the spread of Pizzagate style theories about Democrat figures?
Objection.
I have no way of answering. That is the most
speculation.
Ridiculously.
Have you or your representatives identified any Epstein file content that has been misinterpreted online to revive those claims?
And I think really when we're looking through Hillary Clinton's deposition, I'm going to be looking to see whether any real information came out of this that will help with the investigation of Jeffrey Epstein. You know, she spent many hours in there, about as many hours as her husband, who did in fact appear in those files. What actually came of this deposition?
Yeah, you've definitely had your work cut out for you, Katrina. There's a lot of hours to go through today. Thank you so much for that report.
So they're still trying to do an investigation on Epstein? I thought they were kind of done with all of that. But anyway, y'all, we're going to go ahead and get into the opening statement for Miss Hillary Clinton. I want to give a shout out to Miss Megan, Me88. Welcome to the check-in. And yes, girl, we're going to have our Christmas trees up, you know, however long we want them up. That's right. Yes. Keep that nice, joyful spirit going on. Okay. And we also have, I cannot pronounce your name, but at Nigeri, that said Christmas tree in March. Love it. Welcome to the live stream. Glad that you are here. We're going to go ahead and we're going to get into this deposition from the opening statement of former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton's deposition on the Epstein trial. Let's go.
Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this deposition will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Yep.
Do you have any other questions before we begin?
Yes, I have an opening statement that I would like to deliver before we begin. Mr. Chairman, ranking member, members of the committee, as a former United States Senator, I have respect for legislative oversight, and I expect its exercise, as do the American people, to be principled and fearless in pursuit of truth and accountability. As we all know, however, too often congressional investigations are partisan political theater, which is an abdication of duty and an insult to the American people. This committee justified its subpoena to me based on its assumption that I have information regarding the investigations into the criminal activities of Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. Let me be as clear as I can. I do not. As I stated in my sworn declaration on January 13th, I had no idea about their criminal activities. I do not recall ever encountering Mr. Epstein. I never flew on his plane or visited his island, homes, or offices. I have nothing to add to that. Like every decent person, I've been horrified by what we have learned about their crimes. It's unfathomable that Mr. Epstein initially got a slap on the wrist in 2008, which allowed him to continue his predatory practices for another decade. Mr. Chairman, your investigation is supposed to be assessing the federal government's handling of the investigations and prosecutions of Epstein and his crimes. You subpoenaed 8 law enforcement officials, all of whom ran the Department of Justice or directed the FBI when Epstein's crimes were investigated and prosecuted. Of those 8, only 1 appeared before the committee. 5 of the 6 former attorneys general were allowed to submit brief statements stating they had no information to provide. You have held 0 public hearings, refused to allow the media to attend them, including today, despite espousing the need for transparency on dozens of occasions. You have made little effort to call the people who show up most prominently in the Epstein files. And when you did, not a single Republican member showed up for Les Wexner's deposition. This institutional failure is designed to protect one political party and one public official, rather than to seek truth and justice for the victims and survivors, as well as inform the public who want to get to the bottom of this matter. My heart breaks for the survivors, and I am furious on their behalf. I have spent my life advocating for women and girls. I have worked hard to stop the terrible abuses so many women and girls face here and around the world, including human trafficking, forced labor, domestic violence, and sexual slavery. For too long, these have been largely invisible crimes or not treated as crimes at all. But the survivors are real and they are entitled to justice.
Yes,
In Southeast Asia, I met girls as young as 12 years old who had been forced into prostitution and raped repeatedly. Some were dying of AIDS. In Eastern Europe, I met mothers who told me how they lost their daughters to trafficking and did not know where to turn. In settings around the world, I met survivors trying to rebuild their lives and help rescue others with little support from people in power who too often turned a blind eye and a cold shoulder. If you are new to this issue, let me tell you, Jeffrey Epstein was a heinous individual, but he's far from alone. This is not a one-off tabloid sensation or political scandal. It is a global scourge with an unimaginable human toll. My work combating sex trafficking goes back to my days as First Lady. I worked to pass the first federal legislation against trafficking and was proud that my husband signed the Trafficking Victims Protection Act, which increased support for survivors and gave prosecutors better tools for going after traffickers. As Secretary of State, I appointed a former federal prosecutor, Lucy DeBaca, to ramp up our global anti-trafficking efforts. I oversaw nearly 170 anti-trafficking programs in 70 nations and directly pressed foreign leaders to crack down on trafficking networks in their countries. Every year, we published a global report to shine a light on abuses. The findings of those reports triggered sanctions on countries failing to make progress, so they became a powerful diplomatic tool to drive concrete action. I insisted that the United States be included in the report for the first time ever in 2011. because we must hold ourselves not just to the same standard as the rest of the world, but to an even higher one. Sex trafficking and modern slavery should have no place in America. None. Infuriatingly, the Trump administration gutted the Trafficking in Persons Office at the State Department, cutting more than 70% of the career civil and foreign service experts who worked so hard to prevent trafficking crimes. The annual trafficking report required by law was delayed for months. The message from the Trump administration to the American people and the world could not be clearer. Combating human trafficking is no longer an American priority under the Trump White House. That's a tragedy, it's a scandal, and it deserves vigorous investigation and oversight. A committee endeavoring to stopping human trafficking would seek to understand what specific steps are needed to fix a legal system that allowed Epstein to get away with his crimes. A committee run by elected officials with a commitment to transparency would ensure the full release of all the files. It would ensure that the lawful redactions of those files protected the victims and survivors, not powerful men and political allies. It would get to the bottom of reports that DOJ withheld FBI interviews in which a survivor accuses President Trump of crimes. It would subpoena anyone who asked on which night there would be the wildest party on Epstein's island. It would demand testimony from prosecutors from Florida, New York, and the Department of Justice about why they gave Epstein a sweetheart deal and chose not to pursue others who may have been implicated in his crimes. And it would demand that Secretary Rubio and Attorney General Bondi testify about why this administration is abandoning survivors and playing into the hands of traffickers. It would seek out advocates and law enforcement officials on the front lines of the fight against human trafficking and ask them what support they need. And it would put forth legislation to provide more resources and force this administration to act. But that's not happening. Instead, you have compelled me to testify, fully aware that I have no knowledge that would assist your investigation in order to distract from President Trump's actions and to cover them up despite legitimate calls for answers. If this committee is serious about learning the truth about Epstein's trafficking crimes, it would not rely on press gaggles to get answers from our current president on his involvement. It would ask him directly under oath about the tens of thousands of times he shows up in the Epstein files. If the majority was serious, it would not waste time on fishing expeditions. There is too much to be done. What is being held back? Who is being protected? And why the cover-up? So my challenge to you, Mr. Chairman, and members of this committee is the same challenge I put to myself throughout my long service to this nation. How to be worthy of the trust of the American people that they have given to you. They expect statesmanship, not gamesmanship, leading, not grandstanding. And they expect you to use your power to get to the truth and to do more to help survivors of Epstein's crimes, as well as the millions more who are victims of sex trafficking in this country and around the world. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I would also like to request that the video of this deposition be made available within 24 hours, as it has been for other witnesses.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. The time reads 11:34 a.m. The majority's time will begin now. Madam Secretary, in the interests of efficiency here today, I'm going to ask you one question followed by a list of names. The question can be answered yes or no. If you do indicate yes to any individual, I will come back and revisit that at the end.
Okay, so just to answer your question, Miss Megan Me 88. I know I typed it, but let's just say it here. So the depositions for Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton were last week. I want to say Hillary was on last Thursday and Bill was on last Friday. They did it behind closed doors. And as you just heard, she was asking for it to become visible, within a day. But they released both depositions today at about 3, 4 o'clock Eastern Standard Time in the evening. And they're like 4 to 6 hours. So I was able to go ahead and at least show the opening remarks. But like the deposition itself, like I said, 4 to 6 hours, and yeah, still gotta go through them and get the highlights, all that kind of thing. So yeah, so we got Bull Monkey in the house. Hey, welcome. And let's see, we got Bull Monkey saying, are the other offenders not named because they are also survivors of blackmail? There's some real mental acrobatics to get your head around that. Yeah, I have no idea who the other offenders are. Like Miss Clinton was saying, like, she doesn't understand like, why they are bringing her to be deposed when she has not met this man. But there are other people, and she was saying the president, whose name was listed thousands of times in the files, but isn't being requested to do a deposition in front of Congress or whatever. So I think her statement is why they're now trying to see if that could be a thing, but it's probably not, being that the House and Senate are both controlled by Republicans. So more to come on that. But we got Megan B88 saying, "Oh my God, I'm disgusted so much." Oh yeah. So yeah, I don't know if they're gonna have President Trump actually do a deposition. I'm doubting it. I think that with them having this Operation Epic Fury going on, like this is gonna be on the back burner to an extent, right? But I want to show you guys Bill Clinton's deposition as well. So let's go ahead and check that out. Feel free to chat. Hold on. Oh, here we go.
Of perjury, that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Do you have any questions before we begin?
No.
I have a comment before we begin, please. Mr. Chairman, I want to start out by saying, as you know, yesterday there was a photo released, and I appreciate you assuring and admonishing the committee and all of us of our obligations. Obviously, we want to ensure that that doesn't happen again. We've obviously experienced a number of deep fakes that have now been circulating on the web, not because of anything that the committee did, but because of the release of this particular.
Let me say this. The lady who released the picture of Hillary Clinton during last week's deposition of her, she came out and said that she didn't get any type of punishment or reprimand for what she did. So when Hillary Clinton was being deposed on last Thursday, a member of Congress took a picture of her and sent it to a influencer, and who put it all over the internet, to which they had to stop the deposition. But Hillary went ahead on and continued it after the fact, right? But yeah, she came out and said that she did not get any type of reprimand or slap on the wrist for what she did. So interesting how they're saying now that she did. So let's get into the video.
Particular photograph, and for that reason I would ask two things. One, a reminder to all that the obligation to maintain what is occurring in this room occurs, and two, a release of the video of the Secretary's testimony as soon as possible, ideally today, which was in 24 hours, and the same for the President, so that there are not deep fakes that are representing what is happening here when they actually have not.
Yeah, and let me say, yesterday that was an unfortunate situation. We had probably two things that shouldn't have happened. The release of the photo, as well as a Democrat member communicating with the New York Times. So I will again remind everyone to refrain from sending pictures or texting with media outlets outside. Melvin is our videographer, and we're getting he's doing this today as well as producing the video, so we'll get them out hopefully as soon as possible, hopefully within the next 24 hours.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate that. Nothing more.
Mr. President, do you wish to provide an opening statement?
I do. It's brief. First of all, good morning and welcome to all of you to our hometown. I appreciate you coming here. I'm here today basically for two reasons. First of all, I love my country and the Constitution, and I believe America was built on the idea that no one is above the law, especially presidents, and that we should all live by the same set of rules shaped by the Constitution. Democracy requires every person to play their part, and I hope that by being here today, we can bring ourselves a little further away from the brink and back to being a country where we can disagree civilly and search for the truth and justice, and that outweighs the partisan urge for spectacle and point scoring. I will do my part, and I hope you'll do yours. The second reason I'm here is that the girls and women whose lives Jeffrey Epstein destroyed deserve not just justice, but healing. They've been waiting too long for both. Through my brief acquaintance with Jeffrey Epstein, though it ended years before his crimes came to light, and though I never witnessed during our limited interactions any indication of what was going on, I'm here to offer what little I know so I can do my part to prevent something like this from happening again. I have to just say one personal thing. Since Hillary came in yesterday, she had nothing to do with Jeffrey Epstein. Nothing. There's a picture of us both shaking hands with him in a photo line in 1993 at a fundraiser for the White House Historical Association. I don't know how it is under President Trump, but when I was there, it was about the most non-political operation you can imagine. There were people who loved the White House, who were interested in it, would give a little money every year to do things that needed doing around the house. And nothing nearly as extravagant as the ballroom or any of that, just things that had to be done. And neither she nor I remembered shaking his hand all those years ago. So I don't think that was right. On the other hand, I do think you should be talking to me. I think you should have called me. I did take those plane trips with him, and you have a right to ask those questions. So I'm glad to be here, and I understand what the oath is. I have to be honest with you. You know, I'll be 80 years old if I live to my next birthday. I don't remember everything that happened 24 years ago, but I do remember some things, and I will tell you what I remember as best I can. We, each of us, owe the victims nothing less than the truth and accuracy. We owe that to the American people. And I actually hope that you will be able to come up with some suggestions that will reduce human trafficking and especially focus on underage girls. I hope you'll be able to do that. I know that Hillary talked a little yesterday about what the State Department does and what she pushed on human trafficking and girls when she was Secretary of State. We had to deal with it, and in my foundation, I saw it in Nigeria when Boko Haram was rampaging through the north of Nigeria, and we were working there trying to stop deaths from diarrhea for young children. And it was interesting. These guys were cold and calculated. They said, oh, you don't have to leave because the kids you're helping are younger than the ones we want. They have to be about 9 before they're worth anything to us. So this is really important, and I will do what I can to make whatever contribution I can. Thank you.
Thank you.
The time reads 11:28, and the majority's time will begin now. Mr. President, thank you for agreeing to testify today and for your years of service to our country. I want to start from the beginning. When did you first meet Jeffrey Epstein?
Well, I will try in this testimony, and I will point it out when I'm aware there's a picture or something that predates it. There's a picture that shows him shaking hands in the...
Let me say this real quick. So Bill Clinton is about 79 years old. And if you haven't caught it, he makes it very clear, like, hey, I'm almost 80 years old. I have been, that's 20 some years ago. I may not remember everything. Like, he really prefaces that as he's giving his remarks and comments to these questions. But yeah, he is almost 80 years old, y'all. I did not know he's almost my parents' age because they're 80 and 81. Let's keep going.
White House Historical Association reception. That was in 1993, but I'm not aware of that. I first remember meeting him when I got on his airplane to take the first trip with my foundation in, I think, 2002, whenever it was. But
And to be clear, do you have any reason to believe that you may have met Mr. Epstein prior to becoming president of the United States?
before I became president, no.
And you mentioned that your first memory of interacting with Mr. Epstein was on your first trip. Which trip specifically?
I'm not sure which one it was. Which one was the first? I took all or part of 4 or 5 trips to Asia and Africa and one to Northern Europe on Mr. Epstein's airplane. And once when I was in Florida, I was offered a ride back to New York, but I wasn't there having it. It was just coincidental that he was there, and I think that was fairly early in the process. But I don't remember exactly. I just know that I did. I took one flight back from Florida to New York, and all or part of several other, I think 4 or 5 trips to Africa, Asia, and one to Northern Europe.
And I want to make sure the record is clear. Is it your testimony today that you have no independent recollection whatsoever of the circumstances of when you first met Mr. Epstein?
Objection asked and answered. You can answer again.
Yes, I do have a recollection of when I remember meeting him before this trip. I mean, on this trip when I took his plane.
Mr. President, we're going to discuss more specifics later, but for the record, can you briefly describe the nature and extent of your relationship with Mr. Epstein?
Well, sometime after I left the White House, either in late 2001 or early-ish in 2002, I received a call from Larry Summers, who had been on my economic team and was later Secretary of Treasury, and was then president of Harvard. And he said that he was calling because a man named Jeffrey Epstein who had made a substantial commitment of several $1 million, I think it was 10, but whatever it was, I don't, to brain research. And that he was a information hungry person, and he wanted to spend some time talking to me about economics and politics. And he said, he's got this massive airplane, and he said he would take you, your staff, your Secret Service detail, and anybody else you wanted to bring on the trips that he knew I was planning to set up a global network to provide life-saving AIDS medicine to as many people as possible, as quickly as possible. And I should back up and say, when I left office, we had done all the preliminary work to set up the global fund on AIDS, TB, and malaria, but it was not yet funded. And there were other instruments and institutions who were later founded, including President Bush's PEPFAR program. It had not yet been funded. There were only 200,000 people in the entire developing world who had AIDS medicine. Most of them in Brazil, which had a big drug operation on its own, and in Thailand, which also had its own drug population. In Africa, there were like 30,000 people or something, just next to no people. And they were dying like flies. And I thought we had found a way to drastically drive the price down. And that if we could drive the price down, we could, and empower people to administer the medicine right, we could save a lot of lives. And I was obsessed with it. And I was being helped by a man named Ira Magaziner, who had helped us in the White House, and whom I had known since we lived as Rhodes Scholars together in the 1960s. So anyway, that's why when Larry Summers said this, I thought, boy, this would be great. And so we followed up and took the trips.
Mr. President, when did your relationship with Mr. Epstein end?
When did it end? Well, I believe I took my last flight in 2003. Now, later I became aware of some involvement he had in the first Clinton Global Initiative, but it was much later.
Why did your relationship with Mr. Epstein end?
Well, after a year or two, we really picked up a head of steam with this AIDS program, and a lot of other people whom I knew better and who really cared about the work came forward and offered to help us provide transportation. And I thought Mr. Epstein was an interesting man, but I didn't think he was really interested in what I was doing. That is, he asked all these questions. He did ask about economics and politics, as he said he would. And he never asked me anything untoward. It's just that I thought I had done what I promised to do, and he had done what he promised to do. And I thought I'd always, over the years, with these donors, tried not to overstay my welcome. I thought that we'd done enough, and it was time to start working with other people.
When did you first learn of Jeffrey Epstein's crimes?
I think in 2008 when he was prosecuted. There's nothing that I saw when I was around him that made me realize he was trafficking women, and I never.
Let's talk about Ghislaine Maxwell. When did you first meet Ghislaine Maxwell?
I believe I first met her with him when she was working with him.
And what did you understand Miss Maxwell, and what did you understand her relationship to be with Mr. Epstein?
I thought she was sort of his chief of staff or administrator.
And you said that you first met Miss Maxwell with Mr. Epstein. Is that after you were president?
Yeah, I don't believe I met her when I was president. I could have. I met a lot of people, you know, I don't remember. But I definitely remember meeting her on that first flight.
Can you briefly, for the record, describe the nature and extent of your relationship with Miss Maxwell?
Yes, it was. It lasted longer and was more extensive than my relationship with Mr. Epstein, because Ghislaine Maxwell started going with a man named Ted Waite, who had made a lot of money making the first sort of self-designed computers. And he was a big supporter of mine and the foundation before he started seeing Ghislaine. We'd been friends, and he was interested particularly in reducing pollution in the oceans. And so when she started going with him, I would see her from time to time.
And when did your relationship with Miss Maxwell end?
I don't think I've seen her in a decade. I don't know. It's been a long time. I don't know exactly when.
Why did your relationship with Miss Maxwell end?
Well, first she moved to Boston, I think. She had a relationship with a man there, and I think they may have married. And so she wasn't so much around, and then when it became, after 2019, when it became obvious that she was involved too, to an extent that I did not know, that was the end of it.
And I want to make sure the record is clear. You mentioned that your relationship with Miss Maxwell was more extensive than that of Mr. Epstein.
Well, it lasted longer, yes.
Okay. When do you have any recollection of what year it would have ended?
No, but you know, when she was with Ted Waite, she was when we were kicking off CGI. She was very interested in that, and she participated. But I don't remember, I don't know, it's been 10, 12 years since I saw her. I don't remember when the last time was.
Thank you. I'm going to ask you some baseline questions regarding who you communicated with and about what. If you don't recall specifics but do recall you communicated with them, you should answer yes, but say you do not recall specifics.
Okay.
Counsel, can I just ask, if you're going down a list, your question is, did he communicate with the person, yes or no? And then you'll come back if he says yes to ask further.
Yes.
Thank you.
And I will finish the prompt here too. So the question, Mr. President, have you ever communicated with any of the following people regarding Mr. Jeffrey Epstein or Miss Ghislaine Maxwell? And for now, you can say yes or no, and we will come back to discuss each one.
And this is to the best of his recollection, yeah?
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
First, Richard Kahn.
Richard who?
Kahn.
T-O-D-D?
K-A-H-N.
I don't know who that is.
Darren Indike.
Indike?
Correct.
I don't know who that is.
Sarah Kellen.
I don't know who that is.
Uma Abedin.
Yes.
Excuse me, Mr. President, the question is, as I understand it, name the people you communicated to about Epstein and Maxwell.
Oh, obviously I know Huma very well. I don't remember any specific conversations we ever had about Epstein and Maxwell.
Noam Chomsky.
No. Mr. Chomsky wasn't a big fan of mine. He thought I was too conservative.
Leslie Groff.
Leslie who?
Groff.
I'm sorry, I don't know who that is.
Nadia Marcinkova.
I don't know who that is.
Jean-Luc Brunel.
I don't know who that is, I don't believe.
Alan Dershowitz.
I know him. And I'm not aware that we ever talked about Epstein or Ghislaine Maxwell. I don't believe we did.
Reid Hoffman.
I know Reid Hoffman, but he never talked to me about Mr. Epstein or Miss Maxwell.
Karina Shuliak.
I don't believe I know who that is. I don't think I've ever met that person.
Woody Allen.
I do know who he is, but I don't think I ever met him, and I never talked to him about Epstein or Maxwell.
Sandy Berger.
Sandy Berger was my national security advisor, and we were very close personally, but he's been dead for several years. And I don't think I ever talked to him about either one of those people.
Jess Staley.
Jess Staley?
Correct.
No.
Paul Morris.
I don't believe I know him.
LED Rothschild.
Who Rothschild?
LED Rothschild.
LED?
Mm-hmm.
I know Evelyn Rothschild. Is that who it is?
No, and I have other Rothschilds on this list as well.
I'm not sure who LED Rothschild is. I've met a bunch of them when I spoke at the funeral for Evelyn Rothschild. And I had met some of the others, one couple in France once 20 years ago, but I don't remember him.
Okay.
Lynn Borser Rothschild.
Yes, I know her, but I don't remember ever discussing Jeffrey Epstein or Ghislaine Maxwell with her.
Glenn Dubin.
I don't believe I know him.
Eva Anderson.
I don't believe I know her.
Casey Wasserman.
I know him. And he was on a trip to Africa with me. But I don't recall ever discussing either Ghislaine Maxwell or Jeffrey Epstein with him.
Ira Magaziner.
Yes, I think I mentioned him earlier. He was the person who basically helped me start the AIDS program, and he ran the Clinton Health Access Initiative for many years. He retired a couple of years ago, a few years ago. But I don't remember ever discussing either Epstein or Rothschild with him. I mean, or Maxwell with him.
Karen Ewing,
No.
Stacy Plaskett,
Stacy Plaskett is the member of Congress from the Virgin Islands, isn't she?
correct.
I know her. But I don't recall ever discussing Epstein or Maxwell.
Howard Lutnick,
Howard Lutnick is the Secretary of Commerce, right?
correct.
I know him and from 9/11, and because Hillary worked with his company and helped him to get going again. But, and I know he's now President Trump's Secretary of Commerce, but I don't remember ever having any conversation with him about Jeffrey Epstein or Ghislaine Maxwell.
Doug Band,
And he worked for me for years. And I know that he arranged like airplane flights and things like that, and was doing work on the first Clinton Global Initiative in 2005. And I know that he knew both Epstein and Maxwell. I do not know to what extent he was in contact with them. And I heard things in the last thing I didn't have any idea 24 years ago. So you'd have to be more specific if you want to know if I knew something then. I can tell you as best I can, but he worked for me and I knew some of what he was doing and I didn't know some of what he was doing.
Okay, y'all. So that was Bill Clinton's opening statement for his testimony. Like I said, these testimonies like maybe 4 to 6 hours, quite a bit. Let me see what Bull Monkey has here in the chat. He says he would hardly admit to being lured by Maxwell first, as it would make him look naive. Robert Maxwell was a proper villain. Okay. Yeah, he's not going to admit to being lured by anybody. I mean, yeah, he ain't going to do that. I agree 100%. I tell you what, y'all, I mean, he is 79, but he really does sound very, what's the word? Like the way he's talking, like, he sounds very seasoned. I'll say that. Like when I normally have heard President Clinton speak, he had a little bit more pep in his step, but I don't know if he's putting on for this particular event here with the, hey, I'm almost 80 years old. That was 20 years ago. I don't know if I remember all that. You know what I'm saying? But yes, there's that. So I am going to try and listen to their depositions in full if I have the time, and then kind of figure out like what were the key takeaway type of thing. So maybe later this week. So as you guys know, to switch gears a little bit, we went to sleep on Friday and we woke up Saturday morning to Operation Epic Fury. Okay. The United States has partnered with Israel to do some attacks, if you will, on Iran. And so what I want to show you guys first is some footage that was provided by the military showing, the targeting and all of that. So let's get into that, okay? My. Okay. Yeah, my screen is real small, but I'm kind of looking like that, leaning in. So that
To
was
their evil
from.
will, not going to
Uh
let it happen. We're not happening
oh. Okay, we
to
stop
us,
that.
and we're not going to let it happen to others.
What's going on with my
The United
phone?
States has the strongest military the world has ever seen. I rebuilt our military in my first term. There's never been a military like we possess. And frankly,
Okay, y'all. I'm
there's
sorry
nobody
about that.
even
I don't know what was
close. But
going on with
we
this
are now using that
with
military
this
for
phone,
good.
but
We want
what
to
I
have
wanted
it
to
for good
say is that those
purpose.
were videos from the
We're
military
undertaking
showing,
this
I guess,
massive
the
operation not
deploying of the
merely to ensure
weapons towards Iran.
security for
And
our
what we're showing right
own
here
time and
now
place,
is going to
but for
be
our children and their
President
children,
Trump's message
just
that he
as
put
our
out on
ancestors
Sunday,
have done for us
informing
many,
that
many
Operation
years
Epic
ago.
Fury
This is the duty and
has
the
taken
burden
place,
of a free
and
people.
that a
These
lot of the
actions
key
are right
leaders of
and they are
Iran
necessary to ensure that Americans will
were taken
never
out,
have
if
to
you will.
face a radical,
So, and he does
bloodthirsty
say that
terrorist
pretty
regime
much
armed with nuclear weapons and lots of
we've
threats.
lost so many people, but
For
there's
almost
probably
50
more that we will be
years, these
losing
wicked
in the
extremists
days to
have been
come. So we'll go
attacking
ahead
the
and
United States
get
while
that started.
chanting the slogan, "Death possible,"
I'm going to go back a little bit
though
so
that
that
won't
we
be
can
the
get the beginning of
case.
the speech.
But America will avenge their
Okay, is it not playing? Oh, here we go. It started over, y'all, so my apologies. It won't be that long. Here we go, y'all.
We have breaking news. The president is giving an update on social media about the strikes in Iran. Let's take a listen.
Over the past 36 hours, the United States and its partners have launched Operation Epic Fury, one of the largest, most complex, most overwhelming military offensives the world has ever seen. Nobody's seen anything like it. We have hit hundreds of targets in Iran, including Revolutionary Guard facilities, Iranian air defense systems. Just now it was announced that we knocked out 9 ships plus their naval building, all in a matter of literally minutes. Iran's formerly supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, is dead. This wretched and vile man had the blood of hundreds and even thousands of Americans on his hands and was responsible for the slaughter of countless thousands of innocent people all across many countries. Last night, all over Iran, the voices of the Iranian people could be heard cheering and celebrating in the streets when his death was announced. The entire military command is gone as well, and many of them want to surrender into saving their lives. They want immunity. They're calling by the thousands. Combat operations continue at this time in full force, and they will continue until all of our objectives are achieved. We have very strong objectives They could have done something 2 weeks ago, but they just couldn't get there. Earlier today, CENTCOM shared the news that 3 U.S. military service members have been killed in action. As one nation, we grieve for the true American patriots who have made the ultimate sacrifice for our nation, even as we continue the righteous mission for which they gave their lives. We pray for the full recovery of the wounded and send our immense love and eternal gratitude to the families of the fallen. And sadly, there will likely be more. Before it ends, that's the way it is. Likely be more, but we'll do everything possible where that won't be the case. But America will avenge their deaths and deliver the most punishing blow to the terrorists who have waged war against basically civilization. They have waged war against civilization itself. Our resolve, and likewise that of Israel, has never been stronger. America is now again the richest, most powerful nation in the world by far. But the only reason we enjoy the quality of life that we do and the freedom and security is we have done things that others are unable to do. But it's because of warriors who are willing to lay down their lives to do battle with our enemies. And they do battle better than anybody. An Iranian regime armed with long-range missiles and nuclear weapons would be a dire threat to every American. We cannot allow a nation that raises terrorist armies to possess such weapons that would allow them to extort the world to their evil will. Not going to let it happen. We're not happening to us, and we're not going to let it happen to others. The United States has the strongest military the world has ever seen. I rebuilt our military in my first term. There's never been a military like we possess. And frankly, there's nobody even close, but we are now using that military for good. We want to have it for good purpose. We're undertaking this massive operation not merely to ensure security for our own time and place, but for our children and their children, just as our ancestors have done for us many, many years ago. This is the duty and the burden of a free people. These actions are right and they are necessary to ensure that Americans will never have to face a radical, bloodthirsty terrorist regime armed with nuclear weapons and lots of threats. For almost 50 years, these wicked extremists have been attacking the United States while chanting the slogan, "Death to America," or "Death to Israel," or both. They are the world's #1 state sponsor of terror. We are the world's greatest and most powerful nation, so we can do something about what they do. These intolerable threats will not continue any longer. I once again urge the Revolutionary Guard, the Iranian military, police, to lay down your arms and receive full immunity or face certain death. It will be certain death. Won't be pretty. I call upon all Iranian patriots who yearn for freedom to seize this moment, to be brave, be bold, be heroic, and take back your country. America is with you. I made a promise to you, and I fulfilled that promise. The rest will be up to you, but we'll be there to help. Thank you. God bless you to our incredible warriors, and God bless the United States of America. Thank you.
I'm so excited. Okay, so that came from President Trump. His speech that he videoed on this past Sunday, letting us know what was going on. Okay. So we have Bull Monkey here saying, I don't really remember any terrorist activity since the hostage taking and murder of Yvonne Fletcher in the mid-'80s at the Iranian embassy in London. My understanding is that the regime of Iran, they were unaliving a lot of people that were of their same nationality. And then on top of that, they were trying to have nuclear weapons too, which is why they targeted certain locations in the map. They got the intelligence information to target certain locations. They got the intelligence information to target certain coordinates, if you will, where they thought they had those had those nuclear weapons being stored or being developed, if that makes sense. So yeah. So I don't think it's because of any terrorist activity, but because that they were harming their own people and then they were building up their own nuclear presence, my understanding as to why this is going on. So they tried to come up with a deal with them, but they don't want them to have any of these technologies, these weapons of mass destruction, if you will, but they did not agree to those terms, if you will. And so now you have this happening, is my understanding. But we'll get more into that. Let's say that Bull Monkey, their own people, but he said that he was responsible for the deaths of thousands of Americans. He said deaths of thousand Americans. I think I missed that. Their own people, but he said that he was responsible for the deaths of thousands of Americans. I kind of want to go back and play that again now that you say that. I'm gonna play that again. I missed that. Let me just go back. Let me go back.
Intolerable threats will not continue any longer. I once again urge the Revolutionary Guard, the Iranian military, police, to lay down your arms and receive full immunity or face certain death. It will be certain death. Won't be pretty. I call upon all Iranian patriots who yearn for freedom to seize this moment, to be brave, be bold, be heroic, and take back your country. America is with you. I made a promise to you, and I fulfilled that promise. The rest will be up to you, but we'll be there to help. Thank you. God bless you to our incredible warriors, and God bless the United States of America. Thank you.
I'm so excited.
Dang, babe.
I didn't go back far enough.
Let's go. As we
And its partners have launched Operation Epic Fury, one of the largest, most complex, most overwhelming military offensives the world has ever seen. Nobody's seen anything like it. We have hit hundreds of targets in Iran, including Revolutionary Guard facilities, Iranian air defense systems. Just now it was announced that we knocked out 9 ships plus their naval building, all in a matter of literally minutes. Iran's formerly supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, is dead. This wretched and vile man had the blood of hundreds and even thousands of Americans on his hands and was responsible for the slaughter of countless thousands of innocent people all across many countries. Last night, all over Iran, the voices of the Iranian people could be heard cheering and celebrating in the streets when his death was announced. The entire military command is gone as well, and many of them want to surrender into saving their lives. They want immunity. They're calling by the thousands. Combat operations continue at this time in full force, and they will continue until all of our objectives are achieved. We have very strong objectives. They could have done something 2 weeks ago, but they just couldn't get there. Earlier today, CENTCOM shared the news that 3 U.S. military service members have been killed in action. As one nation, we grieve for the true American patriots who have made the ultimate sacrifice for our nation, even as we continue the righteous mission for which they gave their lives. We pray for the full recovery of the wounded and send our immense love and eternal gratitude to the families of the fallen. And sadly, there will likely be more. before it ends. That's the way it is. Likely be more, but we'll do everything possible where that won't be the case. But America will avenge their deaths and deliver the most punishing blow to the terrorists who have waged war against basically civilization. They have waged war against civilization itself. Our resolve, and likewise that of Israel, has never been stronger. America is now again the richest, most powerful nation in the world by far. But the only reason we enjoy the quality of life that we do and the freedom and security is we have done things that others are unable to do. But it's because of warriors who are willing to lay down their lives to do battle with our enemies. And they do battle better than anybody. An Iranian regime armed with long-range missiles and nuclear weapons would be a dire threat to every American. We cannot allow a nation that raises terrorist armies to possess such weapons, would allow them to extort the world to their evil will. Not going to let it happen. We're not happening to us, and we're not going to let it happen to others. The United States has the strongest military the world has ever seen. I rebuilt our military in my first term. There's never been a military like we possess. And frankly, there's nobody even close, but we are now using that military for good. We want to have it for good purpose. We're undertaking this massive operation not merely to ensure security for our own time and place, but for our children and their children, just as our ancestors have done for us many, many years ago. This is the duty and the burden of a free people. These actions are right and they are necessary to ensure that Americans will never have to face a radical, bloodthirsty terrorist regime armed with nuclear weapons and lots of threats. For almost 50 years, these wicked extremists have been attacking the United States while chanting the slogan, "Death to America," or "Death to Israel," or both. They are the world's #1 state sponsor of terror. We are the world's greatest and most powerful nation, so we can do something about what they do. These intolerable threats will not continue any longer. I once again urge the Revolutionary Guard, the Iranian military, and police to lay down your arms and receive full immunity or face certain death. It will be certain death. Won't be pretty. I call upon all Iranian patriots who yearn for freedom to seize this moment, to be brave, be bold, be heroic, and take back your country. America is with you. I made a promise to you, and I fulfilled that promise. The rest will be up to you, but we'll be there to help. Thank you. God bless you to our incredible warriors, and God bless the United States of America. Thank you.
I'm so excited.
Dang, babe. All right.
Oh
Let's
my
go.
God,
As we
dude,
unbox our Dream Cloud mattress, we are super.
And again, you were just listening to President Trump.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and finish.
President Trump delivering a message for the first time on social media since those strikes in Iran. We're going to bring in ABC's Selena Wang, who's near Mar-a-Lago. Selena, we just heard the president say that he's hit hundreds of targets, 9 Iran Navy ships and other buildings. He said the Ayatollah is dead, responsible for the slaughter of thousands of people. And most notably, President Trump there said that he is sending our immense love and gratitude to the families of the injured and fallen soldiers. Then he went on to say that there will likely be more. Selena, this is the first time we're hearing from the president since his initial video announcing the strike. What did you make of his message?
Well, first of all, let's just acknowledge that the president made this announcement through his own social media account on a video. He did not invite the press pool to witness those remarks and to ask questions, as the president often does. And also worth pointing out that there were no Trump administration officials on the Sunday shows this weekend. So there have been really no opportunities for groups of reporters and journalists to press this administration about this operation. And some notable points from the president there. As you mentioned, this is the first time the president is publicly addressing the death of 3 American service members as part of this Operation Epic Fury. And the president saying that, quote, there will likely be more U.S. casualties. Remember, this is a president who had campaigned on ending these wars in the Middle East, who not launching new ones and bringing troops back home. But right after these remarks, right after the strikes, I remember the president had already warned Americans that there could be U.S. casualties. Also important there, the president said that combat operations continue at this time in full force, and they will continue until all of our objectives are achieved. Again, this is an open-ended commitment. Unclear if this is going to be days, weeks, or even months. The president also saying that the entire military command is gone. Many of them want to surrender. They're calling by the thousands.
All right, Selena Wang, thank you. I know you'll be up on this. Thank you for that update.
So President Trump did say, and I want to say maybe at his speech today, that they're expecting maybe 5 weeks, but it could be longer and they're prepared. So I guess we'll see how this progresses. But the next thing we have is a update from Mr. Pete Hegseth. He's the Secretary of War currently. And so he did a opening statement this morning. Well, he did not an open, he did like a speech this morning regarding what was going on. And he kind of lays out really clearly what the objective is for Operation Epic Fury. So let's get into that.
2 days ago, under the direction and direct orders of President Donald J. Trump, the Department of War launched Operation Epic Fury, the most lethal, most complex, and most precise aerial operation in history. For 47 long years, the expansionist and Islamist regime in Tehran has waged a savage, one-sided war against America. They didn't always declare it openly, except for their constant chants of death to America. They did it through the blood of our people. Car bombs in Beirut, rocket attacks on our ships, murders at our embassies, roadside bombs in Iraq and Afghanistan, funded and armed by Iranian Quds Force and IRGC killers. My generation of veterans carry the names of brothers who never came home. Brothers butchered by Iranian-backed roadside bombs and well-armed militias, thousands of our own. We didn't start this war, but under President Trump, we are finishing it. Their war on Americans has become our retribution against their Ayatollah and his death cult. It took the 47th president, a fighter who always puts America first, to finally draw the line after 47 years of Iranian belligerence. He reminded the world, as he has time and time again, being an American means something unbreakable. If you kill Americans, if you threaten Americans anywhere on earth, we will hunt you down without apology and without hesitation, and we will kill you. President Trump has also been very consistent. Crazy regimes like Iran, hell-bent on prophetic Islamist delusions, cannot have nuclear weapons. It's common sense. Many have said it, but it takes guts to actually enforce it, and our president has guts. Iran's stubborn and self-evident nuclear pursuits, their targeting of global shipping lanes, and their swelling arsenal of ballistic missiles and killer drones are no longer tolerable risks. Iran was building powerful missiles and drones to create a conventional shield for their nuclear blackmail ambitions. Let me say that again. A conventional shield for their nuclear blackmail ambitions. Our bases, our people, our allies, all in their crosshairs. Iran had a conventional gun to our head as they tried to lie their way to a nuclear bomb. It almost worked under Obama and his terrible deal, but not under this president. Turns out the regime who chanted death to America and death to Israel was gifted death from America and death from Israel. This is not a so-called regime change war, but the regime sure did change, and the world is better off for it. Today, in their desperation, the enemy is unmasked. As Iranian missiles and drones rain down indiscriminately on the hotels, airports, apartments, and other civilian targets of their neighbors. Cowardly terrorist tactics from a regime that for decades has trafficked in cowardly terrorist tactics, lies, death, and destruction to this day. The Iranian leadership has built nothing except proxies and missiles and drones and deeply buried nuclear factories and facilities. Peaceful nuclear ambitions do not need to be buried underneath mountains. Last June, Operation Midnight Hammer obliterated their nuclear program to rubble. Afterward, we told them plainly, that's it, now make a deal. They arrogantly refused. We said, rebuild it, and we'll stop you again, this time far worse. Well, President Trump, Secretary Rubio, Steve Witkoff, Jared Kushner, they bent over backwards for real diplomacy, offering pathway after pathway to peace. I watched it. I was there. They tried over and over and over again earnest attempts at peace. The former regime had every chance to make a peaceful and sensible deal. But Tehran was not negotiating. They were stalling, buying time to reload their missile stockpiles and restart their nuclear ambitions. Their goal, hold us hostage, threatening to strike our forces. Well, President Trump doesn't play those games. And as Secretary Rubio said after the Maduro raid, if you don't know, now you know. President Trump puts America and Americans first. He doesn't hesitate, and neither do our troops. The mission of Operation Epic Fury is laser focused. Destroy Iranian offensive missiles, destroy Iranian missile production, destroy their navy and other security infrastructure, and they will never have nuclear weapons. We're hitting them surgically, overwhelmingly, and unapologetically. With every passing day, our capabilities get stronger and Iran's get weaker. We set the terms of this war from start to finish. Our ambitions are not utopian. They are realistic, scoped to our interests and the defense of our people and our allies. Speaking of people, we hope the Iranian people take advantage of this incredible opportunity. President Trump has been clear, now is your time. To Iranian security forces, choose wisely. President Trump has also been clear about your fate in either direction. To the media outlets and political left screaming endless wars, stop. This is not Iraq. This is not endless. I was there for both. Our generation knows better, and so does this president. He called the last 20 years of nation-building wars dumb, and he's right. This is the opposite. This operation is a clear, devastating, decisive mission. Destroy the missile threat, destroy the Navy, no nukes. Israel has clear missions as well, for which we are grateful. Capable partners, as we've said since the beginning, capable partners are good partners. Unlike so many of our traditional allies who wring their hands and clutch their pearls, hemming and hawing about the use of force. America, regardless of what so-called international institutions say, is unleashing the most lethal and precise air power campaign in history. B-2s, fighters, drones, missiles, and of course, classified effects. All on our terms, with maximum authorities. No stupid rules of engagement, no nation-building quagmire, no democracy-building exercise, no politically correct wars. We fight to win, and we don't waste time or lives. As the president warned, an effort of this scope will include casualties. War is hell.
Yeah.
And always will be. A grateful nation honors the 4 Americans we have lost thus far and those injured. The absolute best of America. May we prosecute the remainder of this operation in a manner that honors them. No apologies, no hesitation, epic fury for them and the thousands of Americans before them, taken too soon by Iranian radicals. Before I turn it over to General Kane for the operational update, let me speak straight to you, the Joint Force, our warriors on the front lines. This is your moment. This is the generational turning point America has waited for since 1979, and since the rudderless wars of hubris, my generation, our generation, endured. Don't listen to the noise. Just stay focused. Our commander-in-chief is steady at the wheel. We face a determined enemy, but you are better. But we must prove it every single day. History doesn't care if we're tired, if we're scared, or if the fight feels big. It demands warriors who rise anyway. Peace through strength, the warrior ethos, lethality, unity of purpose, those are not slogans. They're the beating heart of what it means to wear the uniform, that uniform. You think clearly under fire, you act decisively in chaos, you uphold the Constitution, and you uphold our country without hesitation. We are not defenders anymore. We are warriors, trained to kill the enemy and break their will. History is watching. Be the force you swore an oath to be: focused, disciplined, lethal, and unbreakable. We will finish this on America First conditions of President Trump's choosing. Nobody else's, as it should be. And know this above all, President Trump and I have your back, always. Through fire, through criticism, through fake news, through everything. We unleash you because you are the best, most powerful, most lethal fighting force the world has ever seen. May Almighty God watch over you and his providential arms of protection extend over you. Godspeed, warriors, and keep going.
All right, that was Pete Hegseth, y'all. And he kind of broke down the surgical, the singular focus that they have right now on preventing these folks from being able to have weapons and nuclear capability. So that is what they are fighting towards. Okay. So we got Bull Monkey saying, oh, so if you question the attacks, you dishonor the soldiers that have already died. And he said, by default, yes. Okay. Well, if that's what he said, then okay. He also quoted 1979 and not 1977 as a starting point of when all this kind of kicked off with the Iranian folks. And the thousands of Americans unalived. So you asked about that in the comments. So there's that. And President Trump did an update around lunchtime today. So let's get into that.
Today, the United States military continues to carry out large-scale combat operations in Iran to eliminate the grave threats posed to America by this terrible terrorist regime. Following our obliteration of Iran's nuclear program in Operation Midnight Hammer a short while ago, we warned Iran not to make any attempt to rebuild at a different location because they were unable to use the ones that we so powerfully blew up. But they ignored those warnings and refused to cease their pursuit of nuclear weapons. In addition, the regime's conventional ballistic missile program was growing rapidly and dramatically, and this posed a very clear, colossal threat to America and our forces stationed overseas. The regime already had missiles capable of hitting Europe and our bases, both local and overseas, and would soon have had missiles capable of reaching our beautiful America. The purpose of this fast-growing missile program was to shield their nuclear weapon development and make it extraordinarily difficult for anyone to stop them from making these highly forbidden by us nuclear weapons. We were the ones that were complaining. We were the ones that wanted it stopped, but everybody was behind us. They just didn't have the courage to say so. An Iranian regime armed with long-range missiles and nuclear weapons would be an intolerable threat to the Middle East, but also to the American people. Our country itself would be under threat, and it was very nearly under threat. I was very proud to have knocked out the Iran nuclear deal by President Barack Hussein Obama. That was a horrible, horrible, dangerous document. They would have had nuclear weapons 3 years ago, and they would have used them. But I'll not let that happen. For almost 47 years, this regime has been attacking the United States and killing Americans. Every time you see someone with missing arms and legs or a face that's been absolutely shattered violently, it was almost certainly caused by an Iran roadside bomb. They were put there by General Soleimani, who was the father of the roadside bomb. Very proudly, he thought, but I terminated him in my first term. This was our last best chance to strike what we're doing right now and eliminate the intolerable threats posed by this sick and sinister regime. And they are indeed sick and sinister. Our objectives are clear. First, we're destroying Iran's missile capabilities, and you see that happening on an hourly basis, and their capacity to produce brand new ones, and pretty good ones they make. Second, we're annihilating their navy. We've knocked out already 10 ships. They're at the bottom of the sea. Third, we're ensuring that the world's #1 sponsor of terror can never obtain a nuclear weapon, never going to have a nuclear weapon. I said that from the beginning. They're never going to have a nuclear weapon. They were on the road to getting one legitimately through a deal that was signed foolishly by our country. And finally, we're ensuring that the Iranian regime.
Okay, so I'm gonna rewind a little bit. I see the request in the chat. Just a little bit. Let's see.
And since the rudderless wars of hubris, my generation,
all the way
our
back.
generation, endured.
Horrible, dangerous document. They would have had nuclear weapons 3 years ago, and they would have used them. But I'll not let that happen. For almost 47 years, this regime has been attacking the United States and killing Americans. Every time you see someone with missing arms and legs or a face that's been absolutely shattered violently, it was almost certainly caused by an Iran roadside bomb. They were put there by General Soleimani, who was the father of the roadside bomb. Very proudly, he thought, but I terminated him in my first term. This was our last best chance to strike what we're doing right now and eliminate the intolerable threats posed by this sick and sinister regime. And they are indeed sick and sinister. Our objectives are clear. First, we're destroying Iran's missile capabilities, and you see that happening on an hourly basis, and their capacity to produce brand new ones, and pretty good ones they make. Second, we're annihilating their navy. We've knocked out already 10 ships. They're at the bottom of the sea. Third, we're ensuring that the world's #1 sponsor of terror can never obtain a nuclear weapon, never going to have a nuclear weapon. I said that from the beginning. They're never going to have a nuclear weapon. They were on the road to getting one legitimately through a deal that was signed foolishly by our country. And finally, we're ensuring that the Iranian regime cannot continue to arm, fund, and direct terrorist armies outside of their borders. And we thought we had a deal, but then they backed out, and they came back, and we thought we had a deal, and they backed out. I said, you can't deal with these people. You got to do it the right way. Today, we grieve for the 4 heroic American service members who have been killed in action and send our love and support to their families. In their memory, we continue this mission with ferocious, unyielding resolve to crush the threat this terrorist regime poses to the American people, and a threat indeed it is. We have the strongest and most powerful by far military in the world, and we will easily prevail. We're already substantially ahead of our time projections, but whatever the time is, it's okay. Whatever it takes, we will always, and we have right from the beginning, we projected 4 to 5 weeks, but we have capability to go far longer than that. We'll do it. Whatever somebody said today, they said, oh, well, the president wants to do it really quickly. After that, he'll get bored. I don't get bored. There's nothing boring about this. Do you agree with that, Pete? I don't think there's anything, Mr. General. I think there's nothing boring about it. Somebody actually said from the media, I think he'll get bored after about a week or two. No, we don't get bored. I never get bored. If I got bored, I wouldn't be standing here right now, I guarantee you that, to go through what I had to go through. We also projected 4 weeks to terminate the military leadership, and as you know, that was done in about an hour, so we're ahead of schedule there by a lot. But please join me in thanking every American service member who bravely is standing in harm's way. They really are incredible, and I just want to thank you. We have a lot of them right here. Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right, y'all. So you heard the update from President Trump. That was at lunchtime today. That was also kind of a part of a honor. Girl, what am I talking about? That was also part of a honor ceremony that he was doing as well. Oh, Bull Monkey said, I'm not likely to see them though. Oh yeah. Yeah, quite a few people in the wars have gotten become disabled from like the roadside bombs and shrapnel, things like that. When I was in San Antonio, you would see it quite often. I used to volunteer at the Wounded Warriors place, where the families would come. It's like a Ronald McDonald House, but it's for the military. So, you know, you go and you cook food and do things for the families and stuff there. But yeah, you'll see quite a bit of what he described. Yeah, he said it best. I won't reiterate it. But yeah, it's a sight to see, especially with the folks that are young, like 20-something-year-olds that are experiencing or have experienced those type of health effects. I'll call it that. But yeah, so that was for lunchtime today. And yes, so the death toll is now, when I last checked, it was 6 American soldiers that have been unalived, and I want to say about 18 that are wounded. And like the president and Hegseth said, you know, it's gonna continue to, the numbers are going to increase because they're still doing, you know, they still have this war going on. So yeah. I'm not sure if you guys saw earlier, but there were three planes that got shot down. I want to say in Kuwait by mistake, but luckily the pilots were able to eject safely. So that was a good end of the story, right? We got Bull Monkey saying, but aren't they from Iraq and Afghan vets? We have been at war for like since 9/11. So we have been at war for about what, 19, 20 years? So all them different operations, Enduring Freedom and Iraqi Freedom and all that. So yeah, like some of the people I have seen were from the war that just ended not too long ago. So I don't know all the names of the wars. I was quite intrigued by the name Epic Fury. But they said they have a process in place where they help them come up with these names of these operations. So, but yeah, so I'm going to show you guys the latest video that I have regarding like the 6 that that were unalived and everything, and about the planes that got shot down via friendly fire is what they call it. But these planes are expensive, as you know. So it's like that's a big hit when you shoot down several planes. I mean, reminds me of what happened this weekend down there in El Paso, where they shot down what was it they shot down in El Paso? I'm gonna look that up and I'll be back with it. Let's go ahead and get into this real fast.
The United States and Israel continuing to pound Iran with bombs and missiles for a third straight day. President Trump at the White House explaining why he decided to attack now, after weeks of negotiations with the Iranians.
Our country itself would be under threat, and it was very nearly under threat.
Iran and its allies responding with drone and missile attacks across the region, hitting targets in at least 10 Middle East countries, including Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the United Arab Emirates. Dramatic video after Kuwait shot down 3 American F-15 fighter jets in an apparent friendly fire incident. All 6 crew members survived. The Pentagon confirming today at least 6 U.S. service members have now died after Iranian attacks in the region over the weekend. The president insisting Operation Epic Fury is ahead of schedule after the initial barrage killed nearly 50 top Iranian leaders, including the Ayatollah.
Right from the beginning, we projected 4 to 5 weeks, but we have capability to go far longer than that. We'll do it.
The conflict stranding hundreds of thousands of travelers caught in the middle. Americans like Oliver Sims finding themselves unable to get back to the U.S. with airports and airspace across the Middle East suddenly shut down.
I have no idea as to how I'm going to get out of here. Some people are thinking about going and driving to other countries and then catching flights out of there. And so I'm still weighing several different options.
I don't think they know what they are doing.
On Capitol Hill, Democrats slamming the president's decision to go to war.
They've spent through billions of dollars already. I think folks at home want cheaper health care, cheaper housing. I go on and on. They don't want billions spent on unnecessary wars overseas and Americans coming home in flag-draped caskets.
The White House is briefing top congressional leaders from both parties on Operation Epic Fury today and will meet with all members of Congress tomorrow. A bipartisan group of lawmakers says it will vote on a bill this week to rein in President Trump's ability to take further action in Iran. But even if it passes, the president will likely veto it.
So I just found, I was trying to type into the chat, y'all, where I saw that, let me go ahead and get this back right here. So yeah, basically, so I want to say it was Sunday is when the military shot down a drone that was owned by the U.S. Customs Border Protection by mistake. And so they shut down the airspace because, you know what, hey, if you're shooting down other government-owned drones, I mean, you may do something else. And they have like an actual airport and stuff down there. So they shut that down. I want to say for, was it, how long are they going to have the airspace shut down for? I can't see that, but I can't tell right away, but it was shut down for at least a couple weeks trying to get this together. But you also heard them talk about how the Congress is meeting to discuss this Operation Epic Fury. Congress did not approve this this Operation Epic Fury. So I think they are, to my understanding, as they said in the video, they are trying to, I guess, meet to determine if President Trump had the ability to do what he did. Now, what I did learn is that he briefed the Gang of 8, I guess, earlier last week on what was going on. So the Gang of 8 is pretty much like the top folks in the House and Senate who had to be kept abreast of what's going on when it comes to intelligence, stuff like that. So those people were briefed according to House Speaker Johnson. And so now oh, here it is right here. So now Congress is getting involved and they're trying to determine, I guess, if Trump had the ability to do what he did. So what is Bumaki saying? He said, Bumaki, I think your comment is being removed. Let me check over here real fast. Okay, so he said read some time ago that more British troops were killed by American friendly fire than by Iraqis. Oh, okay. Did not know that. Okay. So yes, I was trying to find what I had for the Gang of Eight. Yeah, here it is. So the Gang of Eight were briefed about potential military action earlier in the week ahead of the U.S. strike on the country. And so that Gang of Eight are 8 members of Congress who are briefed on intelligence matters, the majority and minority leaders of each chamber, and the chairman and ranking minority members of both the House and Senate intelligence committees. So the Gang of Eight was briefed in detail earlier this week that military action may become necessary to protect American troops and American citizens in Iran. He received updates from Secretary Rubio thereafter and will remain in close contact with the president and the Department of War as the operation proceeds. We pray for the safety of our brave service members and our allies involved in Operation Epic Fury. May God bless them and may God bless America. That's what Speaker Johnson wrote about the matter. So, yes, that's what they did. And to my understanding, there's a debate going on as to whether or not what President Trump did was, in alignment with the Constitution. And so what they're saying here is that Article 1 gives Congress the sole power to declare war. The president relies on Article 2 authority to act unilaterally for national security, often requiring approval only for operations lasting over 90 days. So if it's under 90 days, technically he can do what he's doing, right? Is what it's saying. But if it's going to be over 90 days, then that's when you have to have approval from Congress, right? So I guess they're trying to debate now if the Article 1 of the Constitution requires a formal declaration of war or authorization for use of military force for significant conflicts, which they say was violated. So I think they're supposed to meet about it today, but I believe I heard that they're going to do a vote of some kind. I may meet on tomorrow, on Tuesday. So lots of moving pieces. Plus, you have, an increase in the price of oil because I think it's called, what's that strait over there called? Starts with an H, but they're not. There's gonna be some challenges getting oil up out of the Middle East, so we're gonna see things go up in price, right? So that's to be expected. But yes, y'all, we're gonna stay on top of this because we went to bed Friday and then Saturday morning, we got Operation Epic Fury going on, and as Trump said, they could have did this a couple weeks ago, but the other people couldn't just get there. They couldn't get there quick enough, is what he said, right? So yes, y'all, that's what we got going on with that. It's been an interesting last few days. We've had the depositions for Epstein with President Clinton and former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. They finally put out all those videos today. We saw a little bit of that. That we got Operation Epic Fury going on. We have, a lot going on with that. So, you have different sides of the coin, if you will, firing missiles. Things are happening as we speak. Can't keep up with it. So, Miss Nancy Guthrie, I haven't mentioned her, but she's still not found. And they are transferring over the responsibility of seeing over the case. I think that's going to a special team or something like that. So that's happening. And I saw where Savannah Guthrie had mentioned when she's gonna go back to work, going back to Today Show and everything. So I guess she's gonna go back at some point. I'm not sure when, but lots going on. So yeah, for those who are still here hanging out, make sure you like, share, comment, and subscribe, support the channel. I appreciate it. What do you guys have for me in the chat? Y'all been real good about chatting throughout today's live stream. I appreciate that. Making me learn a little bit more on the fly because I never knew why Monica Lewinsky came out about what happened with her and Bill Clinton. I didn't know about that until Bull Monkey said, "Hey, what happened?" I had to go look it up. Now I'm a little bit more knowledgeable, okay? But anyway, y'all, I don't see anything in the chat. We have been on live here for an hour and 50 minutes, y'all. So I'll be back on Wednesday. So if you have not, go ahead and subscribe, hit the notification bell. And I will see you guys on Wednesday. You have a blessed night and an awesome week out here.